Hi and welcome. Now we're in gender and we're looking at gendered education. And although much of the issues in this chapter and in the textbook are American in focus, many of the issues also apply to Canada. But in Canada, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects us from discrimination. Now that doesn't mean that there are no inequities. Some of these inequities are ingrained institutionally, such as in education, in families, politics, and in media. So what we'll do, we're going to start with the gendered expectations and the pressures facing students. And we're going to begin in academia. So at the academics, and we'll first begin looking at the males and some of the key features that affect them, and then we'll move on to the females and also non-conforming gendered. Now, some psychologists say that the average boy is disadvantaged in early schooling because of the feminine environment. And this is really just about the presence, including mostly adult females, in the environment among young boys. And they also say that boys tend to have more physical energy and less impulse control than girls, so they have a greater difficulty in adjusting to the requirements of sitting quietly and following instructions. Now, male students tend to fall behind female students on most markers of academic success. They are less skilled at reading in early elementary school and are more likely to drop out and less likely to attend college. And they also tend to study less. Now, these are generalities based on data. This isn't necessarily representing all men or all males and all females. So bear that in mind. Now, one of the features that's pretty important is socioeconomic status. This has a great impact on academic achievement, and it has in fact more impact than does sex, gender alone. Personal choices play a role in academic success. In college, women tend to spend more time studying and less time, playing computer games and on the computer than do men. Excuse me. So now we'll touch base on females. Now they have a slightly different impact regarding academics. There's a long-standing belief that females are less able to understand math and science and have made female success in these fields difficult. These beliefs affect the evaluation of female skills, lower their self-confidence, and consequently their performance in science and math-related tasks. Excuse me. Females are less likely to be encouraged to pursue careers in math and sciences. However, in Canada, this has been changing, where women are pursuing science, technology, engineering, and math. This is also known as STEM, at a far greater rate than they had in the past. And it's important to note that the feminist movement has had a big impact on being able to show examples and give, if you will, permission for young girls to pursue science, technology, engineering, and math, and that is a path that they can pursue. And so that's part of what's had a big impact. And we see it in post-secondary and the graduating rates in those areas. Women have been really making some inroads. Now, as far as the gender non-conforming students frequently face school practices and policies that are challenging, and they can even go so far as to negate their identities. Gender binary norms, male, female, are pervasive in schools. Bathrooms, team sports, locker rooms are divided by sex, and it makes things much more difficult to find a place. Heterosexuality is the assumption in school curricula, with heterosexual relationships presented as the norms in families, and romantic relationships. Sexual orientation can also be complicated, can also complicate roommate choices in colleges. Gender stereotype curricula, with less pervasive while less pervasive in the past, still exists in today's schools. Women are highlighted in curricula tend to be in more traditional feminine roles or have distinguished themselves in masculine contexts using traditional masculine behaviors. It's probably worthwhile noting, check through your textbooks in different courses to find what representations are the images of men and women. Are they traditional? Are they breaking out of tradition? The history tends to be taught based on how things affect men, but not how it's affected women. Science even shows a bias when we consider how reproduction used to be taught. Sexism interacts or intersects with racism, classism, heterosexism. White, heterosexual, able-bodied, middle and upper-class men are depicted as the norm, while others are underrepresented. This partial curriculum limits our understanding of diverse perspective and diverse accomplishments. It may also encourage men to see themselves as able to influence events and meet high accomplishments while discouraging women from the same. Now, as I'm mentioning, you check your textbooks. In my abnormal psychology class, the textbook has decidedly more images of women as affected by disorders than any woman or women who have had images that acknowledge their contributions or understanding of treatment of disorders. And this has been long-standing in many textbooks through high school and even public school. This more traditional view of men and women has been depicted in the way that the textbooks represent. Now, this next section we'll touch on is athletics. Now, your text is going to have a pronounced U.S. focus. The U.S. has what's known as a Title IX. And here is where legislation is aimed at providing opportunities and equality for women in athletics at school. Title IX is a part of the reason that women have greater opportunities to participate in athletics in the United States. However, male athletes and their coaches continue to receive greater support, including financial support. You look around, watch a number of U.S. colleges. The large, vast majority, 90%, is representative of male sports that get huge amounts of money. In college sport alone, in college football alone, the male athletic programs get millions and millions and millions of dollars to produce NFL-grade stadiums for their college students. There's no example of that for women. In spite of the effort to promote and the implementation of Title IX, in spite of the efforts to promote fair implementation of Title IX, colleges and universities continue to employ deceptive practices to make it appear that they are meeting the criteria of Title IX when they're in fact not. Participating in sports while in school is linked to higher salaries and better health for women and girls. It doesn't always show up that way in Canada. In Canada, it's the charter that helps women's athletics for all ages. Women's hockey and the under-18 hockey, women's soccer and their coach, John Herdman. One could look at this and say, well, why is it not a woman coaching? Or you could say, why is the man wanting to coach women? Gender socialization in peers. Now, peer acceptance is higher when children and young adults conform to gender stereotypes. Pressures to conform to masculinity are stronger for boys than for the pressures of girls to conform to femininity. Boys are expected to show signs of, boys are not expected to show signs of femininity. During college, male peers often encourage one another to engage in risky drinking and sexual behaviors to embody the extreme versions of masculinity. Pressures to conform to femininity are apparent. Female peer groups reinforce feminine identity in most girls. Women and girls encounter sexual objectification and harassment from male peers and adults. Undergraduate college women report feeling compelled to achieve effortless perfection, it's called, to be beautiful, fit, popular, smart, without any visible effort. Undergraduate women felt overwhelmed by the thought that they should be perfect in all realms of life. College women are also socialized into cultures of romance that emphasize desirability to male partners over academic achievement and intellectual development. Gay, lesbian, and transgendered students also face peer pressure. The pressure to conform to conventionally gender identity can be much greater for the LGBT student, including the use of bullying. Bullying is a frequent experience for the LGBT student at colleges and universities, yet very few American schools have LGBT exclusive policies in place. In Canada, there's a great deal more. Now, when we think about same-sex education programs, some believe that single-sex educational programs may help negate some of the problems associated with gendered curricula. Some statistics show that promising results for graduated single-sex programs. Now, critics state that the better solution is to ensure that teachers in all schools treat all students equally, since single-sex schools try to be lend to private and tend to be tuition-driven. Now, gendered expectations and pressures facing faculty, schools are also workplaces, so it's important to explore gendered attitudes and practices that affect employees. So there's a gendered hierarchy. Now, although most high schools and elementary school teachers are female, most administrators and superintendents are male. At higher status colleges and universities, most faculty members are white males. 3/4 of full-time professorships at American colleges and universities are held by males. Female faculty earn 80.6% for every dollar that male faculty earns, and men also highly outnumber women in chief administrative positions. Now, the proportion of male and female faculty and the lack of diversity affects students by limiting their available faculty role models. So when we think in terms of gender bias in evaluation, women and minorities are more likely to be hired when the selection process is blind with respect to applicants' sex, race, and other characteristics. Gender bias is in evaluation has material consequences like discrepancies between salaries. 3 major sources of bias against women faculty have been identified by researchers. First, women's performances tend to be more strictly scrutinized than men, making it harder for them to be perceived as competent. Men have to give stronger demonstrations of competency to be judged by others as competent. And male candidates tend to be hired and judged upon whether they show promise. Female candidates tend to be judged on accomplishments, which may influence hiring decisions. These forms of subtle discrimination are called invisible hand discrimination, or the unwitting discrimination in applying policies that are not inherently biased. Now, when we considered gender policies and expectations, policies are based on the outdated family model in which the man is employed outside the home and the woman works within the home. Male faculty members tend to be evaluated for their skills and abilities, and female faculty tend to be evaluated on their gender performances. Earning tenure. For female faculty, the tenure clock during the early years of an appointment coincides with the time that many women expect to have children. The standard 6-year tenure clock does not allow adequate time for more than one pregnancy, childbirth, and recuperation and children responsibility. Thus, the tenure clock disproportionately penalizes women faculty. Male faculty members who choose to be active parents are sometimes penalized professionally. Some male faculty members do not ask for parental leave for fear of undermining their careers. Service expectations for female and minority faculty tend to be greater than those who are pursuing for white males. Holy cow, this is just... Service expectations for female and minority faculty tend to be greater than those pressures on white males. Since faculty committees are expected to be diverse, women and minorities are asked to serve on them more. Women and minorities may also be asked to help more, for more help from students and be more engaged. Now, that's been a brief overview of gender as it relates to engendered education. I hope it's been helpful, and let's carry on the good fight. Bye now.